Hey y'all, it's Mandy Martin. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Yes, it is. Although every week should be National Teacher Appreciation Week because it took a pandemic for me to realize just how tough your job is. I always knew you were important, teachers, but oh my goodness, especially trying to be a mom, be a wife of a farmer, and juggle everything that goes on in a household, and then be their teacher and their daycare provider and their lunch coordinator and everything. Everything. I'm doing everything. I cannot do the work that you guys do as teachers. And not to mention, you're not just teachers anymore. It just took, boom, overnight when everybody was sent home to do everything from home. By the way, did you know with public school alone, that was like 55 million kids, boom, now are being taught by moms and dads like us, who are probably going crazy.
Welcome to episode 8 of The Media's Input. I am your host, James A. Paxson. To see this interview and previous interviews, go to the YouTube channel, James Paxson. Last episode, on episode 7, I interviewed Lou Gamlin from 12 Ounce Sports and the Aquinas hockey broadcaster. That was a fun interview. You can check that out at the YouTube channel, James Paxson again. Today we have Mandy Martin. She is on Mix 106.3 from 10 to 3 in Saginaw, and she's been at a bunch of different radio stations in the state of Michigan and been in radio for, I want to say, 20 years. Mandy, how are we doing?
Good. Almost 19 years.
19, sorry.
I know. You add that other year and you make me another year older. I did just have a birthday, and I turned 38. So only 2 years to go until my best decade ever. Most women are super not happy to turn 40. Me, on the other hand, I'm pretty much going to throw the biggest party ever because my 30s have sucked, and my 40s, I'm going to be back to being a rock star.
I like that optimistic view very much.
All right. Hey, I have a question for you, though, first. What does the A stand for, Mr. James A. Paxson?
That is James Alfred. That is
Alfred.
My grandfather who passed away recently, who was kind of a hero of mine. And so now
I knew it was Grandpa, but I couldn't remember if it was Albert or Alfred. I couldn't remember which one it was. So.
Oh, it was Alfred. Yeah, he's kind of a hero of mine. And now when I started the Spirit Games in Saginaw, I changed my name for the last couple games that we did before the pandemic. And anything professional, I'd like to be, James A. So he's involved in a weird way.
Not weird.
Well, no, I mean, he's definitely probably one of the best men I've ever known. So I definitely want the A to be in almost everything I do.
I remember you and I talking about that one day, and I always wanted the chance to ask you what the A stood for, and I just got it.
Yeah, you did. I don't hide it much.
I know. I love it. I love that you said James A. Paxson. I was like, yes, I love it. So thank you. So
that's the way I'd like to be known professionally. And
I love it. Do you also want to be known professionally as the Teen Wolf? Because you got a little Teen Wolf thing going on here with the
it's virus. Calm down.
It's okay. That's what it is. It's very distinguished though. I don't know if you're old enough to even know what Teen Wolf is. Have you ever heard of Michael J. Fox?
Yes, I know who Michael J. Fox.
Oh, okay, got ya.
Fun story. Well, not story, but one of my favorite movies is Back to the Future.
Oh, which one?
The first one.
Oh, okay.
Sequels
are there other ones? No.
Sequels are lame, pretty much all around. I'm not, my opinion, I don't like very many sequels, so.
Gotcha. This is your show, so you are allowed to give your opinion, I suppose.
Well, yeah, it's the media's input. You give your input, too. That's the name of the show. It looks like...
This is why this show is becoming one of my favorites. Not only do I get to talk about myself, but I also get to give my opinion, and you have to listen.
It looks like you're live in the studio. How long has this been happening?
Today is my first day. Today is, I'm looking at my computer, June 17th, March 16th, so it was 3 months ago yesterday, was the first day that I was not in the studio, which to me is insane because when I began radio 19 years ago, it was like unheard of that you could, people barely voice tracked, first of all. I can't remember like if they really did. I don't think they really did, to be honest, because I remember I was the person for a while that would have been at one of the stations, because, there's a cluster of stations in a building, usually like 4 or 5, and at least one person from one of the stations would have to be live overnight in case something happened at one of the stations. You had a real live body there to fix it or to call somebody or whatever. And so that's, when I began. And then fast forward 19 years later, technology has changed so much that I literally 3 months ago, as of yesterday, was doing my midday show live from my kitchen table as my then 6-year-old and 4-year-old like rolled by on rollerblades. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, what is going on here? So yeah, for the last 3 months, I have been broadcasting from my house. I eventually moved to my home office because the kitchen table wasn't going to suffice anymore. But I got real used to telling my boys, like, hey, be quiet, mom's got to talk. And then as soon as I said mom's got to talk, I swear to God, every time it would be, mom, I gotta poop, or mom, can you wipe my butt? And I'm like, dude, like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, I had so many listeners that would like reach out to me on social media and they'd say, thank you for being real, thank you for just being, thank you for showing that the same stuff is happening in your house that's happening in our house right now. And I have always been that person on air. Like, how there are some, I hate the word DJs, jocks, personalities, whatever you want to call us, that are pukers, that are, hey, come look at me, I'll be this guy. And, I hate those people. I am who I am on the air and off the air. That phrase, fake it till you make it, I've tried. I can't fake anything, like nothing. It's not good sometimes, but regardless, I am very real. I'm very raw, and most people appreciate that. Some do not. It may have turned me off, but that's all right. They'll like me eventually.
From how long you've been in the business, can you tell by listening to people if they're being fake or not, just by not even meeting them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I am a phenomenal judge of character over the phone, even, you know what I mean? Or through speakers, if you will. Yeah, I can listen to, well, I mean, just give you an idea, I started in radio 19 years ago, right? 2001. And in 2010, ended up leaving radio altogether, which again, didn't think I would do, but I did. And I took an 8-year break, hiatus, if you will. And during that time, I listened to, I've always been in the Saginaw, Flint, Michigan area, those 2 markets. And I still live here. I married a farmer, so not going anywhere. I'm kind of stuck. Well, not really now. I mean, technology wise, I could be anywhere, right? But, and I had no idea. But anyway, so we'll get to that in a bit. I listened to a lot of Sirius XM. And so I got to know, like, I would listen to those personalities on the air, and it's funny, like, I was a listener then, you know what I mean? Like, just like I had listeners when I was on the air, and I found myself being, the typical listener. And for instance, there's a girl, I don't know if you listen to like Octane or Turbo or whatever, like I'm a big rock music person, which is funny because I do top 40 CHR, on the air, but I've always been the type of person who, whatever format I'm working in, I don't listen to. I get sick of it, I think, or whatever,
If you work in it.
Yeah, exactly. But also, unless it's rock music, because I didn't know any rock music until I worked at Banana 101.5 in Flint. And they used to make fun of me because they would play along and they'd be like, hey, Mandy, who sings this song? And it'd be like, I don't know, System of a Down or something. And I'd be like, Metallica? Like, I thought everything was Metallica, Like, at one point I literally was on the air and they had announced, or they had said, Danzig Mother or whatever. And I'm like, what's a Danzig? And they're like, the guy's name. Yeah, like, these are the things that really happened. And like, I wish I did it to be funny, but I was being real. So anyway, I knew nothing about rock music. And now, moving forward, when I was off the air, I listened to Turbo and Octane and whatnot. And so I would listen to like people like Kayla Riley and Shannon Guns and Katie Babbs and whatever. And so Shannon Guns is one of is a personality, like especially like listening to females, right? I love listening to empowering women and whatnot. So Shannon is one that I've always loved. I just think she's fantastic.
So you were out of radio from 2010 to 2018.
Yes.
What was the hardest part about coming back?
Ooh, that's a good question. Something that was difficult for me in the studio when I came back after 8 years being gone was the phone didn't ring, and that blew my mind. I'm like, what's happening? Like, I know I'm at a smaller wattage station now than I was, because when I left radio, I wasn't fired or anything like that. I quit. I actually was on, I was on mornings. I co-hosted mornings. I was on the #1 morning show on the #1 station in the market. I was at that point in my career where, I had reached the top of the ladder here, and it was, when you move on to a bigger market and you go from there. But again, I had married a farmer, and in 2010, the technology wasn't there to be able to stay here and like voice track or whatnot, and I wasn't, good enough from Saginaw, Michigan to be syndicated somewhere, you know what I mean? So, or I didn't know the right people, I should say. I shouldn't say good enough. I'm good enough. But I had to move to a different city, different market. So I ended up quitting radio altogether. And I had a ton of people ask me if I missed it over the years. And they had asked me over and over and over again. And I always, always, always said no. And looking back, I must have been lying at some point, because when I came back, I was so damn happy. I had no idea how much happiness this career brought me. I mean, I had an idea because I loved it, but holy crap, like I joke around and I say that when I come to work every day, the studio is my therapy, and like music, or the studio is my couch, music's my therapy, whatever. And it's true. I went through a horrible postpartum depression and whatnot after I had my second son in 2015. So I was at home with 2 little boys who are amazing, but wow, I was not made to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I really needed to come back to work. And luckily, I got a random, and I mean random, in April of 2018, Facebook message from Ray Story, who was the program director at Mix 106.3 here in Saginaw. And he had sent me a random message, and that message, and I didn't know at the time, but it was because he and Mark Thomas, who was our general manager here at Alpha Media, and I had worked for Mark at one time when I worked in Flint, and I had worked with Ray at another time when I worked in Flint, 2 separate times, mind you. This is why you never burn bridges, because you never know who you're going to work with again. Those 2 had talked about me, and Mark says to Ray, you need to get a hold of Mandy Martin, see what she's up to, and we maybe can, get her back on the air. So Ray emails me in April, and I'm like, and he's like, hey, you ever consider coming back to radio? And I'm like, no, thanks so much. It's really flattering that you asked, but no, it's not really my thing anymore, whatever. So it took my dumb self from April to August to realize I'm an idiot. And I finally emailed him back and I said, hey, are you still looking for somebody? He said, yeah, if you're interested, come in on Monday. I came in on Monday. They hired me on the spot. I started the following Wednesday when somebody had given their 2-week notice. And I was just going to be really part-time, and boom, here I am. Now I'm doing full-time middays, producing our syndicated morning show, and I'm the promotion director. So, and this is June of 2020, and that was August of 2018. So, yeah, but when I came back though, the thing that surprised me the most is nobody called. And I'm like, everybody called when I was on the air 8 years ago. Like, what the hell happened here? And I figured it out eventually, like after a moment or 18, that people don't use the phone anymore. Like they literally don't call people anymore, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't even think about that. So immediately I'm like in Mark's office, our GM's office, and I'm like, dude, we need a text line. Like, are you kidding? Like these people, I need to talk to these people. Like I have listeners out there that are not contacting me, you know? So that's basically what was going on. I mean, that was really weird to me that people weren't calling. So that was hard because I like talking to my listeners. I don't know if you can tell, but I like to talk. And then the other hard thing was to realize I'll be honest, I had resentment towards my husband when I quit radio in 2010 because he didn't have to quit his job. I didn't have to quit mine, but it made more sense. We wanted to have kids and whatnot, you know, and I mean, doing a morning show and having babies and whatever is hard, you know, and he's a farmer. And so he can't just up and quit farming, right? And so, and I had kind of, you know, peaked out, you know, in my career here. And I kind of had some resentment and for all those years. And I realized not long after I came back, after talking with my general manager, just in a random conversation, because we're friends. If I hadn't have went through the last 8 years as a mom and a wife, right, I would not be able to be as decent on the air now here at Mix 106.3 because I know what it's like to be our demographic. I am our demo here, right? Because of those 8 years teaching me how to be the mom and the wife and whatnot, you know what I mean? So everything comes full circle, right? But that was hard, trying to go from one thing to the other. It was difficult during those 8 years to be Mandy Sylvester, if we're being honest, you know. I often tell people and will say that I'm very much like Robin Williams. Like I loved him, still love him. I will say that I'm kind of two people sometimes because of personality-wise, whatever. Like Mandy Martin is a character, and then Mandy Sylvester is who I really am. Obviously, it's my real name. And I don't hide that because if you go on my social media pages, you can see who my husband is. So, but I missed Mandy Martin a lot, and I'm really, really glad that she's back. But I don't know. I kind of now I realize Mandy Sylvester is pretty freaking cool too. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's just learning. It's just all about learning who you are. And I think the older I get, and the more mature I get, and the more you know you go through. And now that I'm almost 40 and stuff, I'm pretty darn mature. So.
Well, one thing you did mention is that you've done morning shows. You're on middays now.
Yeah.
And I assume you've done all different types of times. So what is the main difference from being in radio from the morning to the midday to afternoon drive to nighttime? What are the main differences?
Great question. So when you first start out, I started out as an intern my freshman year of college back in 2001. Most people wait till their senior. I wasn't waiting around for all that. So that's how I got started. Most people, when they start out back then, you started out on overnights, right? Or like a weekend shift or something like that. Not so much anymore because a lot of those are recorded now or voice tracked or whatever. But that's usually your most inexperienced or youngest or newest jocks will start out on overnights and then nights. That's kind of your next most inexperienced, I guess, if you will. I don't know, whatever. How about we'll say this, you're less paid. That makes sense. If we're looking at it as like, if you are looking at day parts and you want to know who makes the most money day part wise, okay, let's talk about that. So overnights makes the least amount, then nights, okay, then middays, honestly, then afternoons, then mornings. All right. And the reason being is afternoons, you got afternoon drive time. So people leaving work, driving home, you got more listeners that way. Mornings, you have even more people. You have the most people basically. And so in order to be on a morning show, to be the main hosts of a morning show, you have to be good, like real good. Especially like in a big market. I mean, like if you've done mornings in a big market, you're golden. You can basically do any job, I would say, you know what I mean? So if you've done mornings or afternoon drive, like if you've done a drive time at all, like that's pretty great. Middays is, can I be honest? Middays is boring. It's super boring because you are background noise in a lot of ways. You really are. And you are, for me, obviously it's hard for me because I went from doing mornings. I'm a talker. I was used to talking 3 to 5 minute long breaks, right? Every time I open the mic. Middays, I'm talking 3 to 5 seconds up the intro of a song, and that's it. And I need to, like, and thankfully, like, my program director now, my content director, Clay Bird, who you interviewed a couple episodes ago, phenomenal guy, 9 years younger than me. Like, and I mean, he's had like a handful of years of experience, and I've had almost 20. So when I found out he was going to be my new boss, I'm like, what am I expecting from this guy, right? Like, for real, I'm just being honest. Like, I didn't know him. I was like, oh my goodness, like, what is this going to be like? I don't know what to expect. This guy, phenomenal. He came, the only radio experience he's had before Saginaw is Portland, big market, right? Where our home office is for Alpha Media. But not only that, he's worked with some of the best of the best, and that's who trained him, that's who taught him. And he's got great common sense, right? Like, so he gets it, and he's a nice person. Like, he actually cares about people, you know what I mean? So he like gives a damn, you know, like how you feel, what you think, and whatever. So all that packaged together. Is he perfect? No, of course not. None of us are, you know. Does he irritate me sometimes? Of course, you know, and I'm sure I've irritated him like maybe twice, but no. He, to be able to learn how to finesse my midday breaks now for that 3 to 5 seconds versus puking all over the place, like, and you know, with like more than just an intro of the song, like he's helping me majorly with that, because I have a morning show mentality, and going from, you know, doing mornings for like 7 out of those first 10 years to doing this is it's difficult for sure.
Well, I assume the change is you talked longer and you had a different type of audience from 6 to 10 a.m. to 10 to 3 p.m.
Yeah, you have yeah, in a way, you have like more business people, more work people during middays. But like I said, you have people that are just have you on as background noise more so. They're just kind of like, okay, yeah, she's just doing this, you know. They kind of look at you like, what contest is she doing today? That's basically like what they really, honestly, that's what they care about. Like, what can I win today? You know, what's that girl on the radio doing today? What's she giving away for free? Versus morning show, what's Mandy Martin talking about that happened in her life today that I can relate to? You know what I mean? That's the difference. The other big thing, the reason why I love mornings is my favorite day part by far, and I am not a morning person. Like, I suck at getting up in the morning. I'm a bee in the morning. Don't talk to me, don't look at me, like, just get away from me. But I love doing a morning show. Because I love working with a co-host. I'm 10 times better on the air if I have another person to talk to. I would love to do my midday show with a co-host, right? Anytime, like right now, like you and I talking, like, I mean, I know you're shooting questions at me and I'm just answering, but like, I would love to, like, I had talked to a couple people that, you know, are just doing, you know, they're playing radio like at Saginaw Valley or whatever. And I'm like, I'll come do it with you for fun, for free, you know, whatever, just because I love doing that. I like co-hosting. I'm a good co-host, you know? So it's just natural for me. I recently did a live stream thing with a guy, Craig Gillette, who is the director for animal control in Bay County. And he and I, for like a half an hour, just went back and forth live on our social media sites. And, you know, Clay and a couple other people were watching. You know, I was at home from my house. Craig was at the animal control building, and we're talking about a pop can drive that they were doing to raise money. And mind you, Clay's only been here since this past fall, so he hasn't seen me like do a lot of the things that I can do. And he's never seen me like really on with a co-host before. And so I did it, and mind you, I didn't prep, nothing like that. I just jumped on and did it and whatever. And we got off, everything ended, and after the call, he actually called me afterwards, and he's like, "Oh my God, like, dude, like that was so good." And I mean, like he made me feel like $1,000,000. Like that was amazing, you know what I mean? But and I remember like I'm good at that. Like that's great to feel it. But like for him to recognize that and to take the time to actually like call me up, you know, after we had already talked, like, you know, about it, like that's my strong suit, you know. To sit here by myself for 5 hours staring at a computer screen and talk up intros of a song, I'm like, you know. And I've never really been like a night jock where like a night jock would have the intern out doing stunts, you know, at nighttime, you know, or whatever. um Afternoon drives basically like the same as, it's kind of a mix between like nights and mornings, you know what I mean? Whereas like midday's just kind of boring, but I'm cool with middays because it's a good mom flow for me right now. I have 2 little boys and this is a good time slot for me. um but if I could pick, I would absolutely kick Brooke off our morning show and take her job.
Well, you've talked about that you have kids and you have a husband who is a farmer.
Mhm.
And so without that, what would you be doing if you married someone whose job wasn't strictly that?
So if I would have stayed in radio, instead of leaving in September of 2010, I my goal was to end up. I told you that I love Shannon Guns, right?
Right.
My goal was to end up probably on XM, but it wouldn't have to be XM. But my goal is to end up in radio in LA. I have family that live in California, and a lot of family actually, and I love, love, love Los Angeles County area. And that's where Shannon kind of lives too. She also lives in Vegas part of the time, in case you wondered. Hey Shannon, what's up, girl? You know, because you know she's watching. No, I swear to God, I'm not a creep. I'm just messing around. Um, but I really do. I could see me doing that. And actually, one of the guys that I worked with at Banana, Brian Beto, he was the program director for Banana when I worked there. He now runs, I think there's a ton of stations actually, including Turbo, which is probably one of my favorite channels on Sirius XM. He, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like runs it, controls it, whatever you want to call it. So I'm like, oh my God, I have an in there. You know what I mean? Like, now granted, like I wasn't his favorite person back in the day, but he knows I'm good now. I remember I was young and dumb and learning all of our things back then, but he and I have had conversations now where we're like, you know, we're glad that, you know, we were who we were back then, but we're also glad that we've grown up a lot since then, you know. And he's one of those people that have stayed in the business the entire time, where I got out for 8 years, you know, and we've recently connected. And it's just one of those, it's just funny, you know, how I'm like, man, I really seriously think that I would have ended up, you know, and I may still someday, who knows, because I could be right here from my home office in Reese, Michigan, where the last 3 months I've been broadcasting, you know, from. I could absolutely be on the air in LA, you know, and have to go out there for, you know, I don't know, appearances or something, whatever. Hit me up. I know I'm being silly now.
Do you think people are able to be just as good of jocks when they don't live in the same area that they're recording from? Or do you think you have to live in your area if you're going to jock there?
Good question. Can you be as good? No. Uh, I think it's ignorant to say that you can. How could I possibly be as good as somebody? We'll just use LA for instance. How could I be as good on the air as a woman who grew up there? You know what I mean? Is my delivery good? Can I entertain people? Sure, absolutely. But it's the same reason that people still keep local news around, or they keep local radio on, right? And it hasn't went to just Sirius XM, or it hasn't went to just cable or just satellite or whatever, you know. Like people still want that local feel for everything. So if you can relate to your local surroundings, I think that's very important. Now, having said that, If it were me and I say I got a job and I was to track or to be syndicated or whatever the case, whatever you want to call it, I would take it upon myself to go there for a certain amount of time, whatever my life allowed. Having 2 little kids, I would probably have to go a couple different times, but I would, while I was there, I would absolutely like do my research, if you will, like not like, library research, but I'd make myself familiar. I'd want to know, first of all, who's my demo? What do they care about? What are they doing? On a day-to-day basis, like I make friends with people who are your demo too. Make friends with people who are your demo's mom. You know what I mean? Like who are your demo's kids, things like that. I would take my kids with me. I would take, especially if I was working in CHR, radio, because I'm the demo. I'm a mom, right? So I'd take my kids with me. I'd let them meet, other kids. I'd if I could, I'd take my husband with me. I mean, I'd want to know as much as possible. Like you want to relate to wherever you are broadcasting, you have to have a reason people want to listen to you. And to me, I'm like, people want to listen to me here because I'm from here. I've been on the air here for, over a decade. And I don't know, I think they know I appreciate this area where other people may not for whatever reason. But I'm proud to be from here. So yeah, I definitely think you need to know the area.
Where can people hear you nowadays?
Mix1063fm.com.
All right. Thank you very much, Mandy. To check out this interview and previous interviews, go to the YouTube channel, James Paxson. And as always, thank you very much to the guest, Miss Mandy Martin.